It's the ultimate coffee pod showdown between Keurig and Nespresso. Who will win? Let's find out. These two coffee systems are going to go head-to-head across 7 categories: machine variety, machine cost, pod variety, pod cost, ease of use, durability, and taste/quality. Let's get started with Keurig and machine variety. Keurig makes a ton of different machines, and even other companies will make K-Cup compatible machines. I used to have one made by Mr. Coffee that was integrated into a regular coffee maker. It could do the single serve pods, or it could make regular coffee. I also now have one that is integrated into my refrigerator. I also used to have one that made an entire carafe of coffee using the K-Cup pods as opposed to just making the single serve coffees. So there's a wide variety, and multiple companies make K-Cup compatible machines. Now let's talk Nespresso. Nespresso makes a wide variety of machines as well. You can get ones that have the milk component attached to it so that you can use the machine to steam your milk, which makes a great latte. Or you can get ones that have a separate milk heater and frother. Or you can get just the sort of bare bones version that just makes the coffee, which is what I have right now, and it also makes a great cup of coffee. So they have multiple machines. The kicker here is that only Nespresso makes Nespresso machines, so you can't buy Nespresso pod compatible machines from another company like you can for the Keurig ones. So for machine variety, I'm gonna have to give it to Keurig. Now let's talk machine cost. I actually went and did some physical research for this one. So starting with Keurig, I actually went to my local Target to just check out how much they were selling Keurig machines for. And it turns out that the lowest they had it for was about $100. They had more expensive ones, but $100 was the cheapest I could find. And then I went to check out the Nespresso machines, and they also had the cheapest one as $100, which I was surprised by because normally they're a little more than that. And I will say that they were on sale, and normally they're more like $130, but the cheapest I could find was $100. So as a tiebreaker, I then had to go online and see what I could find. And the cheapest Keurig compatible machine that I could find was $33. But that one's not made by Keurig, it's like another company, and I really had to look for it. So realistically, the easy cheapest machine was $50. Again, the Nespresso was about $100. So for machine cost, it was really close, but I have to give this one to Keurig again. Now let's talk about the pods, starting with Keurig. Keurig calls their pods K-Cups, and so many different coffee companies make K-Cups. This one is McCafe, but I also have a variety pack that has McCafe, Green Mountain, Caribou Coffee, and Donut Shop Coffee. And I got it on Amazon. It was super easy, but I also checked out the coffee selection at my Target, and they have a ton of coffee options. You can get light, medium, dark roast. You can get decaf, regular, half calf. You can get basically all of the brands of coffee. So any coffee you can imagine, you can get. Although I will say that, for example, my Keurig doesn't make espresso or iced coffee, so you can't really do that, but you can get a lot of variety within the coffee spectrum. Now on top of that, they also had a section for hot chocolate and tea. So you can get non-coffee things that you can make in your Keurig. And the way the Keurig works, you can also dispense just hot water. So if you need to make something with hot water, you can use your Keurig machine to make it. So if you have tea bags, you do hot water and use the tea bag. Or if you were making something like cup of noodles, you could heat the water with your Keurig and put it into your cup of noodles. I don't necessarily recommend that because you definitely want to wash your machine first so you don't get coffee grounds in your soup. But on that note, they actually used to make a K-Cup compatible Campbell's soup. It was Campbell's chicken noodle soup. It had a pod just like this. You stick it in the Keurig and it makes soup. I've also previously owned some Theraflu, which is something you just take when you're sick, and it was also K-Cup compatible. So pretty cool, lots of options. Let's talk about the Nespresso pods. The Nespresso pods look like this. This one is the single shot blonde espresso, but you can also get light, medium, or dark coffee. You can get iced coffee. You can get double shots of espresso. So that's pretty good variety. Now the thing with Nespresso is these pods are actually smart pods. So when you put it in your machine, the machine is able to read it and determine what kind of coffee you're making. So for this one, I pop it in and it dispenses an espresso amount of coffee. And if you put in a pod for a full cup of coffee, it'll make you that. So for that reason, there aren't that many companies that make the Nespresso pods. It's pretty much just Nespresso. And then I've seen Starbucks, and you can get the Starbucks ones at the store like Target, but you're kind of limited to those coffees. So whatever they have in stock, it's just not that many options. And usually if I want an espresso, it's either this one or there's like one other espresso option, and there is no decaf. Definitely no decaf espresso if that's something that you want. However, you can buy a bunch more of the options on Nespresso's website and sometimes through Amazon. I actually got this sleeve of Nespresso pods from Amazon. I think it came with 50 total pods. So you can buy them online and you don't have to just go through Nespresso's website, but it's definitely fewer companies. And then because they're smart pods, you can't really dispense water to make other things if you wanted to do that. So for the variety, I'm gonna have to give it to Keurig just because they have other products besides just coffee, and it's a crazy variety of things that you can get. Now let's talk cost. So you can probably see where this one's gonna go based on when there's variety, cost can be lower. The K-Cup pods are just a ton cheaper because it's so easy to come by. Every different company seems to make them. So if they want to compete with each other, then they can lower the cost of their pods and then you're more likely to buy it. So the cost of the K-Cup pods is just going to be cheaper. So in store, you can easily get a pack of 24 K-Cup pods for $15, which comes out to about 63 cents a pod. You can also make your Keurig experience even more varied and even cheaper by using a reusable K-Cup filter. So this is a product where you fill the reusable pod with coffee of your choosing and use that just like a regular K-Cup pod in your machine. This also opens up the type of coffee that you can get to basically any coffee that you can find. So Keurig is going to win the pod cost category, but just for the purposes of also including how much Nespresso pods tend to cost, they are about $12.99 for a pack of 10, but you can get them on Amazon or sometimes even on Nespresso's website for a little bit less if you buy in bulk. The set of about 50 pods cost me closer to $1 per pod, which is still a lot, but it's better than the $12.99 for 10 of them that I'm getting if I buy it at the store. I should mention, Nespresso actually has two different lines of pods. They have the original style and then they have the Virtuo. This one is Virtuo. You can get a little bit more variety in stores of the original Nespresso pods and they're cheaper. When Nespresso introduced their Virtuo line, they introduced the smart pods. That's why they're more expensive and it's also why there's less variety. They just have more oversight of those pods and they have to be compatible with the machine. Now let's talk ease of use. Again, we'll start with Keurig. If you're curious how my specific refrigerator one works, it's actually pretty simple, but it's gonna sound like a lot of steps, so bear with me. First, you hit start heating, and it tells you how far along the heating process is. It sounds super annoying, but there's also an app and you can schedule it to heat the coffee. So if you get up at the same time every day or around the same time, you can already have hot water in your machine ready to go. Next, you pull out the container, open it up. If there's an old pod in it, you take it out. Then you pop in your new pod and push it down and put the top down and you'll hear a snap. Push it back in. Once it's done heating, you'll press brew size. It has 3 sizes. 8 is the default, but you can also do 6 ounces or 10 ounces. And then you hit brew dispense and you have to hold it for 3 seconds. That's a safety feature to make sure that you didn't just brush by and accidentally hit it and now you have coffee all over your floor or yourself. And then it just dispenses just like any other one. Obviously, not every Keurig machine works that way. A lot of them, you have to pour the water in and then put in the pod, select the size, and push a button to dispense. Some of them will have a reservoir of water and you turn it on, heat it up, put in the pod, push the button to dispense. It's pretty straightforward. My 100-year-old grandpa uses a Keurig coffee maker and he finds it pretty simple to use too. Now let's talk about the Nespresso machine. The Nespresso machine is also really easy to use. You just make sure your reservoir is full of water, open it up, it automatically ejects the old pod and you put in your new pod, close it up, give it a little bit of time to heat up, and once it's ready, you push the button and dispense the coffee. It's actually so simple that my 1.5-year-old really enjoys helping me make my coffee every morning, and she will put the new pod in, and then once it's ready, she'll push the button. So you could argue that the Nespresso is easy enough for a toddler to use. So for that reason, I'm gonna give ease of use to the Nespresso. I will give the caveat that if you have one that includes the milk dispenser or something like that, it is not as easy to use, but still pretty straightforward. So we're gonna give this one to Nespresso with their very simple setup. And come on, Nespresso needed a win. Now let's talk durability. I've had my Keurig refrigerator set up for 7 years. When I first installed it, I couldn't get the coffee to dispense properly. It turns out that when it was installed, they didn't install some pressure valve correctly. So the water couldn't brew because it wasn't coming through at the right pressure. Once they fixed that, it has worked like a charm. I never have to do anything with it. Every once in a while, I stick the dispenser in my dishwasher to clean it. That's it. That's the only maintenance I ever have to do. It's very simple. My grandpa that I mentioned, who's over 100 and also has a Keurig machine, has had his for at least 10 years, and he also has zero maintenance. It's never broken down. It works just fine. These are very good machines that just don't seem to have too much that can go wrong on them, and they just work well. I've never really seen anyone have a problem with their Keurig machine. Okay, so let's talk about durability for an espresso. If you own an espresso machine, then you might already know where I'm going to go with this, but Nespresso machines seem to break down kind of a lot. And what I mean by that is they give you weird errors that then you have to figure out because there's no instructions on the machine and that don't always make any sense. So for example, with my machine, I use it with distilled water so that I don't have to descale it as frequently, and it still gives me trouble. So sometimes when I put the pod in and get it ready to go, instead of being the white light, it alternates between white and red. And that is an error. And then I had to go look it up and found out that it meant that the pod was no good. Okay, pod's no good. That means I eject the pod, put in a new pod, make a new cup of coffee. Well, I've just wasted at least $1. That sucks. So was there really a problem with the pod? No. And that's where the frustration comes in. These pods are not as cheap as they could be, so I don't really want to waste one. I know $1 is not that much money, but I still don't want to lose one that is actually fine. So here's the workaround. If you have the Nespresso Virtuo machine, this is what you do. Open it up, but don't let the pod eject. Unplug it, plug it back in, close it back up, try it again. It should dispense properly the second time. If it doesn't, do that process again. Third time, it always works. I don't know that that'll be the case for you, but for me, if I do that at least twice, it always works. Usually it works the first time I do it. So that's super annoying, especially, like I said, the pods are the more expensive between the two machine systems, and it would just be nice if it didn't do that. I don't want to have to waste my pods, and I don't want to have to waste my time. But actually, the more frustrating thing is this other machine that has the milk attachment. So you put the milk in the separate attachments, and it brews a really nice latte. After each cup that you brew, you have to run a rinse cycle. Then, when you're done making your coffee for the moment, you need to wash every part of the milk dispenser. And that makes sense because milk has a lot of calcium, but it doesn't seem to matter how well you wash this thing. It always seems to require extra descaling. So about once a month, it needs to be descaled. And that is also annoying because the descaler costs like $20, which again, isn't like a crazy amount of money. But to spend that once a month on top of the cost of the pods and the machine, it's just kind of annoying. I will also say that Nespresso has really good customer service. If you let them know that your machine has broken down, you can send it back, they'll send you one, or they'll fix it and return it to you. It's really nice that this is something that they do, but it also kind of proves my point that these machines just kind of break down a lot. So I would say that the Nespresso is far less durable. I have definitely had my Nespresso machine for a much shorter time than I've had my Keurig, with daily use for either of them, just way more problems with the Nespresso. So durability is going solidly to Keurig. Finally, let's talk about taste/quality. Like I said, you can get pretty much any brand of coffee in a K-cup, and you can get a variety of other products as well. But are they good? They're fine. They're not bad, and some are better than others, for sure. I've had really terrible Keurig coffees, and I've had pretty good Keurig coffees. I think the hot chocolate is too watered down. I haven't tried the tea, but generally when I try to use my existing Keurig with a non-coffee product, I end up getting some coffee grounds or some coffee taste in it. And you might not want that depending on what kind of drink you're trying to make. I feel like Keurig has mixed quality at best. That's fine. There's lots of variety. You can choose to spend more money on better coffee. With Nespresso, they control the entire process from A to Z. So they control the quality, and they know what amount of coffee should go in each pod. They put that amount of coffee in each pod, and the machine knows exactly how hot to make the water, how much water to dispense, and when it functions properly, it does it right every time. I think it makes the best coffee. When I first had a Nespresso latte, it was just the best latte I had ever had in anyone's home. And I couldn't believe that it just came from a machine, that they were just able to do it with their machine. It was so good. And every cup of Nespresso coffee that I've had since then has been equally good. It just makes a really good cup of coffee or a really good latte, whatever you're making. They're so good. I think the only way to get something comparable would be to get an actual espresso machine. And even then, those are so complicated, I don't want to deal with that. And you don't want to deal with that if you're looking for a coffee pod system, right? We want something easy to use, good every time. In that case, I'd say taste/quality definitely goes to Nespresso. So let's tally up the score. Keurig has 5 categories that they won, and Nespresso has 2 categories that they won. So by the numbers, Keurig is the winner. And what I would say about this is if you want to get a relatively inexpensive machine that will work with a wide variety of coffees and other products, and you want it to last a long time, you should get a Keurig. If you want the best coffee that you can have for the lowest effort at home, you don't care too much about the cost, then you should get the Nespresso. I personally have Nespresso as the winner because it's just so good. I don't even use my Keurig anymore, and it's part of my refrigerator. It's why I bought this refrigerator. It just makes a better coffee. It makes a better latte. I really like that I can make lattes with it. You're gonna have to decide what's the most important factor to you. For me, it ended up being the taste. Feel free to let me know which one you think is the real winner in the comments. Maybe you love your Keurig and you think it makes way better coffee, and maybe you have an espresso and you don't think it's overpriced. Let me know. And if you found this video interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing, and thanks for watching.